Hi, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of From the Heart. I'm your host, Chloe Trca, and this is a podcast where we talk all things health, wellness, business, mindset. I always say, if it's on my heart, I want to share it for you guys. It's pretty much just like my verbal diary slash me giving you my life lessons so you guys don't make the same mistakes that I did. But I do think that there's beauty in mistakes and there's beauty in the failure, and that's where we learn and grow. But again, I just use this podcast to share my experiences. But this week is Valentine's Day week, so I want to talk about different tips to utilize during your single season or being a girl in a relationship. I'm just going to give all of my advice and everything that I've learned in the last few years because dating it's crazy. It's just fitting for the week. I want to talk about it. I haven't done a podcast with this topic in a long time, and I know you guys always like this. I know when I was in my single season too, I had a lot of questions. I was listening to all sorts of podcasts on dating and relationships and singleness. So I want to help you guys because my perspective has completely changed. There's so many things that I look back on and I'm like, I'm so sorry to my ex. Like, I can't believe I was like that. I've just grown a lot in the last year, and I think that has really, really benefited my relationships. I'm in a relationship right now. We've been dating almost a year, but let's get into it. I guess I kind of want to give you guys a breakdown of my dating cycle. History, I guess, not cycle. I was in a very long-term relationship from 14 to 20. I dated a guy from my high school hometown, 6 years. And then we broke up. We did the whole thing. We lived together. Yeah, lots I can deep dive into that. But then I was single for, would it have been like 2 years, maybe 3 years? It was a while. And then I met Kyler last January. So just about a year ago. We waited a while. And now we've been dating for, I guess our 10-month is like in a week or so. So I feel like I've been through it all. I've been through the situationships. I've been through screw boys. I want to be single forever, independent, like boss girl. I have been, in a long-term committed relationship where we were literally living like husband and wife practically. And now I'm in a very like God-centered, faithful, Christ-centered relationship, and it's by far the best one. It's the healthiest. Not to say there's not highs and lows, and not to say that there's struggles, but I feel like I've experienced a lot of different seasons in the dating world, I guess. So I guess I just want to go through the mistakes that I made and kind of explain them and I guess elaborate on the lessons that I learned. So we're just going to kind of go through, like I said, the lifespan of my life. And we're going to start with the first few mistakes. Now looking back, again, in the moment, I did not realize these were mistakes. Again, I don't regret anything. I think everything happens for a reason, and there's a lesson in it. And, it shaped me into who I am. It chiseled me into the woman I am. And so I don't regret it, and I'm not shaming anyone for making any decisions. Again, date how you want to date. I'm just sharing my experience in hopes that I can help someone maybe going through something similar. If you have questions, if you're confused, because I know I was very confused and overwhelmed and stressed. And, but anyway, the first, I guess, bit of my dating experience was that very, very long-term relationship. And honestly, it was a very healthy relationship. I've talked about this a lot before. Just not my person. I think sometimes you can date a person and then you pretty much serve each other to like your maximum potential. I think this happens a lot in the early stages of our life, like high school relationships, maybe early college. You have to remind yourself like how much you're changing as a person. And if you guys don't change and grow, I guess, in an equally yoked way, it can be difficult. Think of yourself freshman year of high school. I was 14. I was a much different person at 20. I had many different goals and visions on life and beliefs and values and morals. And those weren't things that I talked about with the guy when we first started dating at 14. I didn't have a care in the world. I was living on my parents' dime. I was going to practice. I was going to school. I had my best friends. Obviously, there's struggles in high school. Don't get me wrong. I was stressed then, but I'm like, if I only knew. But life was pretty simple. Life was pretty easy. I didn't think to, get down to the nitty gritty because it really wasn't that serious. I think you just kind of date a boy because you think they're cute and they like you, they think you're cute. And then it's like, oh, you're fun to hang out with. And then we date. I just think a lot of times we hold on to those relationships because we're comfortable in them. But it's really important as you grow older to have those conversations of values, beliefs, morals. Like going forward, again, I'm in a relationship, but God forbid, this isn't the person for me. I don't know. If I'm ever in another dating season again, I will lead every first date, first interaction with laying down the ground rules, laying down the boundaries, because I did not do that in the first relationship and it was a little bit rocky. And then it come to find out we were just very different people. And it did take 6 years to develop and figure that out, because when you start dating someone for a long time, you start to kind of mesh. I lost myself. I didn't have my own identity. And that can be really difficult when you're growing and you're learning and you're making big decisions in your life. It's I actually don't even know what I want because I don't even know who I am. So I think, one, it's very important to take time for yourself in a relationship. Don't just get into a relationship and neglect personal care and personal time. Make sure you're journaling, make sure you're around girlfriends, make sure you have hobbies, okay? Especially in your early 20s. I feel in high school, you do have hobbies because you're either playing a sport or you're in the music and the arts, or even you have a part-time job or something. You're busy doing something else. When you're an adult, your life can quickly become work and your significant other, and you neglect all other aspects of life. Don't do that. That's that can be a really scary thing, because you put all of your identity into this person and then the fear of losing them becomes that much more scary because you don't know what you would do without them. And I know it's when people are in love, they're oh, I don't know what I would do without you. You need to have your own identity. Especially in in the dating season, you're not even married yet, but I noticed that was a struggle in my first relationship when I was so young, because I did grow with this boy for so long and we kind of just merged into one. So it was really difficult going through that breakup season because I didn't know who I was. I had to discover so many things about myself. It was eye-opening, and I'm I just don't want you guys to make that same mistake. So if you are in a relationship, just make sure you're prioritizing yourself, you time, hobbies. I know you're going to want to be with them 24/7. I want to be with Kyler 24/7, but I know for the health of our relationships and each other, we still have to have our own alone time. We still take a night or two a week just to ourselves. I'm not with my girlfriends. I'm not even with him. I'm just on my own, and I have to learn to become comfortable in my own presence, because some people aren't comfortable in their own presence and it's scary to be alone. I encountered how much I feared that once I moved to a new city, when I didn't have a ton of girlfriends and I didn't have anyone to, fill that gap, and I was alone more. But I learned so much about myself, and I do trust myself. And I do know if something were to happen and Kyler and I, God forbid, don't work out, it's I know who I am, and I am comfortable in my own space, and my presence to myself and having the Lord is enough. Just don't find all of your identity and confidence in your relationship. And like I said, have hobbies. They're really, really important. Just have a night where you do Pilates with a friend at night, or you do a little picnic with your girlfriends once a week. Get out of the house, do a dinner with a friend once a week, and then do a workout class, or go to the gym, or have a hobby. And then I guess I'm trying to think more back to those days. It's kind of crazy because it's been quite a while. It's been 4 or 5 years. I think it was 2021 when we broke up, right into 2022. So it's been 3 years, maybe 4. I don't know. But it's been a while. Now we want to talk about the singleness season. If you're single and you're struggling being single, I know I was, trust that time is intentional. My faith is very strong. I trust in the Lord, and finding God at the end of my singleness season, what truly healed me. That was so important, and I needed that. And I truly think when I found the Lord was when he was okay, you're ready for somebody to walk into your life. I met the Lord probably halfway through my singleness season, those 3 was it 3 years, I think, or 2? I think it was 2 full years. That's so funny. I can't even remember. It felt like forever. It felt like 5 years, but I think it was about like 2 years. He met me halfway through, and the first half of that, you guys, I spiraled into the lowest point of my life. I've never really opened up about this, but like looking back, I didn't realize either in the moment that I was spiraling. I didn't realize I was so low, but I was. And the reason I was is because I was putting all of my worth into the boys that I was talking to, and if boys were interested in me, and if a boy liked me. Throughout this time, I was in a situationship, and that was so hard on me because all of my like energy, all of my thoughts, all of my everything poured into focusing on this situationship, and I was neglecting myself. I was neglecting my friends. I was neglecting my business. I was neglecting my work because if you girlies know, like if there's been a boy in your life and you're in a situationship and you're constantly thinking like, do they like me? Do they not? Are they just using me? Are they not? Like mixed signals. That's all you think about because you're just trying to like get to the bottom of it and you're trying to solve it. My advice is to get out, run for the hills. No man that the Lord has placed into your life for you and that's going to be your future husband is going to play those games with you. He's going to be actively pursuing you. The Lord is going to send you a man who's pursuing you, who is honest with you, who is direct with you, who is seeking you out and wanting you, okay? If you're playing games, knock it off, you guys. I drug that for so long because honestly, it was an ego thing. I think a lot of us girls are like that. It's like a game. You want to win it over. Like, you know how you feel. You have the feelings, but it's like, okay, I have to make them like me kind of thing, and just let it go because you are doing so much more damage to yourself by doing that. Yeah, it might be sad at first when you cut them off. It's kind of hard, but just cut them off, everything, okay? Remove it, end it. Trust me. Because you know what, ladies? You know what? The second that I did that, the second that I cut off every guy, I was on the dating apps. I was back and forth with this situationship. There were a few other guys. Like, it was a little bit of a mess, but we all kind of go through this when you're single. You know, you're dating around. I wasn't sleeping around. I don't want you to get that misconstrued, but like talking to different guys, whatever. And I knew none of them were like my husband. I think when someone's serious about you and they're like heavily pursuing you, you know that it wasn't any of this. And I didn't see myself actually being in like a lasting, loving relationship with any of these guys, but it was an attention thing. And it was because I put my confidence and my worth into the boys rather than into myself and the Lord. Okay. But through my transformation with God and learning all of these things, I am not kidding you guys. It's part of my testimony actually. But one of my friends here from Arizona, she was like my girl. We would talk about boy issues. She knew all the drama. She listened to this podcast. It was Sadie Robertson's podcast. Whoa, that's good. And Sadie Robertson was sharing her testimony on her and her husband. And she was saying how she cut every guy off that she was talking to because she was kind of stringing all these guys along, as was I. And she said she cut them off. She deleted them. She unadded them. She removed them. She stopped talking to them, like cold turkey, okay? And I think hers was like a few weeks maybe, and she met her husband. God placed her husband into her life. Y'all, get this. My friend shares this with me. 2 days later, Kyler pops into my life, just as a friend, but he pops into my life. And me and him were friends for like a few weeks, and then it was like a little more, and then it was a little more, and then we waited a while to date. But like, I cut all those guys off, making room for the right one. And God knew that. And it blew my freaking mind. I was like, insane. Okay? So remind yourself, like, if you're taking up all of this space with all of these guys that you're just stringing it along because you want attention, or they're kind of pursuing you but not enough, but you string them along because you think you want them, cut it off. I'm talking to somebody. I know I'm talking to someone, and you're getting a little convicted and you're like, ow, that kind of hurt. Like, that's right. Trust me. Okay. I'm going to pray over you guys after this podcast, because I promise the second you cut them off, I'm not saying it's going to be days. I'm not saying it's going to be weeks, but it could be. You're opening up a room for the right one, and God will place that into your life, but you have to be ready for it. And that was another thing I was reminded of, is actually it was a conversation with Kyler. And this is so funny because when we were just friends, we were just chatting, and I was actually telling him, like, I'm done with boys. Like, I cut them all off. I'm just going to focus on the Lord. I need to like focus on me. I was like in a really bad spot like 2 months ago. I'm like, I'm healing from it. And I was like, all these guys just are playing games or immature, whatever. And he goes, well, do you think you're like ready to be a wife? Like he kind of checked me and was like, well, maybe it's not the guys. Maybe you're not ready either. And maybe because like you attract what you are. So because I wasn't ready to be like a wife or to be a serious girlfriend, like I was playing these games as well. Like it takes two to tango, you know? I was like, whoa. I was like, well, maybe not. And it really made me like reflect and ponder and think. And I'm like, a lot of these things that I'm doing, I'm stooping to their level. I'm getting petty as well. I'm playing these games. And it was eye-opening. So it's like, make sure you're showing up as like the type of person you want to attract as well. And that's so true. I always say, I'm like, Kyler, if Kyler would have met me a year and a half ago instead of a year ago, like he would not have pursued me because I was a much different person. And so that's why you have to trust the timing of God chiseling you and transforming you, because the more you develop, the more of a developed man or woman, whoever, you will meet. Like you meet people at where you're at. I always say that, and it's so true. So the more time you take to develop, the greater that person will be, because you attract people at your level. I'm not saying like status, success, money, but I'm saying like intellectually and beliefs and values and morals. Like there's a lot to it. It's not just like surface level materialistic things. Okay. But it's so insane. Okay. So that was kind of the singleness season. I made a lot of mistakes and it was rough, and it's crazy because you can visually see it as well. And it's really sad. It really is sad because I didn't realize how stressed and sad and lonely and insecure I was. But then I found the Lord and everything changed. Okay. And this is so crazy because now I want to kind of shed light on my well, it's not new, it's like a year old, but the relationship I'm in now. I shared this on I shared this on TikTok a few months ago, and I was looking through my journal prompts, and I love journaling, and this is why, because I love looking back through them. And, sorry, you guys, I keep checking my phone if you're watching the live stream. The car auto body shop just called me because my car is getting worked on. Anyway, stressful weekend I had. But anyway, I actually heard this from my friend Taylor, and she said that she saw it on TikTok, and this person's like, write down verbatim, like, I pray that, and write everything that you pray your future husband or your future boyfriend will be. I was jaw to the floor, baffled when I was going through this journal like a few months after I met Kyler. I forgot I made this entry because, again, Taylor told me about this in like a little bit before I had that moment where I'm like, I'm done with boys, I'm cutting them off. Like this was like right in that timeline. Okay. It was very like within that week or two. And she was like, Chloe, this is crazy, because she was reading all the things and she goes, her fiance now, Brad, fits every single one of them to a T. Like even specifics, like will dance in the kitchen with me. And she's like, Chloe, we were dancing in the kitchen like literally last night. She's like, it is everything. And I'm like, I'm trying this, I'm doing this. Like I was to the point where I'm like, anything, I'm desperate at this point. And I was like, why have I never like turned to God about this? Maybe a little bit, but not like in a serious manner. And so I opened that journal up literally that day. And I was like, I pray that, I pray that, I pray that. And it was like, I pray that he's best friends with my brother, because Jake never liked any guy I ever talked to or dated. He was so hard to like impress and get the approval by. Like brothers are just like that. Insane though. And just, they were specifics like that. And I was like, that he's my biggest cheerleader, that he enjoys the little things. And like Kyler like all of these are so legit. Kyler, like for instance, we were driving in Oregon and there was like a little cherry stand just along the highway. So random, but he'll like pull over and we like got cherries. Like I love that a man like thinks about the little moments like that. I'm like, that was like one of the highlights from that entire trip, was stopping, getting the cherries, driving around in like the beautiful Oregon scenery and eating these cherries and like chucking the pits out the window. It was so much fun. Or he'll stop and just like look at a view on our drive. Like so like God is so good that he listens to the prayers. And if that's what he wants for you as well, like he will bless that. But when I say this list was like 10 or 15 things, it wasn't a short list. It was very specific as well. Like make it as specific as you want it. But I'm looking through this like a couple months later after meeting Kyler, and I am stunned. I'm like, Kyler is this list. Like this worked. This is true. And So I really encourage you guys to open up your journals right after this episode and write down and pray for each thing that you're looking for in a man, and don't settle. Don't settle. And I think it's kind of crazy because you don't realize God's doing it and it's happening. But then like Kyler was in my life, and then I randomly kind of forgot about the list, came upon it, and was like, wow. It's a really good feeling too when you look back and you're like, this is the man of my dreams, you know? But even in healthy relationships, you guys, there's still highs and there's still lows and there's still struggles. I think every season comes with their own difficulties and the own beauties of it. And I know Valentine's Day, I remember 2 years ago, I was so sad and I was dreading Valentine's Day because you open up your phone and you see all the cute flowers that the boyfriends get their girlfriends, or the cute date nights, or the cute picnics and the cute dinners, and I was just so sad and I felt so lonely, and I'm like, well, I just want love. I just want this. Like, why can't I find this? Well, because one, I was seeking it out in the wrong areas, okay? And two, I wasn't trusting God's timing. Like, I needed that crappy Valentine's Day to, one, make me appreciate now that in a few days, like, Kyler and I get to spend Valentine's Day together, and I have somebody to, enjoy those moments with, and I get the bouquet of flowers, or I get the dinner. You will get that one day, but if you're not in that right now, understand you're in like the chiseling season, and that's a beautiful thing as well. Again, I'm not saying I understood that in the moment, but that's why I'm telling you this now, because I wish I did. Like, it does get better, and you will look back and be like, you know what? I have like a deeper appreciation for this now, because it is tough being single. So I don't want to like not shed light on that, because I have been like, dreading it. But again, too, if you are single during Valentine's Day, it doesn't mean like you can't receive love and that you can't give love. I remember focusing on that day. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to call my mom. I'm going to call my grandma. I'm going to call everyone I love in my life, chat with them, spend time with them, send my mom flowers. Like, when you give love, it like comes back to you in like an abundance. You feel it so much more when you give it. And I think that's the beauty of giving love. Like, even if you don't feel it, I think you should give it, and you will experience the feeling when you're giving it, So just get through the day. I promise if you focus on still how you can give it, it will make the day a lot better. But there's a few more just like little tips and tricks and advice, a few things that I have learned in this past relationship that I want to kind of talk about, just because I have learned more in this relationship than ever. And it's been really, really cool to see. And I know it's cool to think too, like in a year, how much I've grown. So it's like, what will this next year entail? But the thing is, all of these lessons have come with like a difficult period and a difficult season. So if you're in a relationship and you're experiencing something and it's like, why does this seem so hard? Like, it might just be because you're growing, especially if you're in your early 20s. We grow a lot and we change a lot, and we're learning how to like mend lives together and mend like norms and beliefs and like is the word predisposition? I don't know if that's the right word, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, meeting a guy too from like a different part of the country. We did not know each other until a year ago. Like, I know nothing about him, nothing about his past. Same with mine. Like, we have different life experiences, okay? So we had to learn how to kind of blend it. And that's been a cool journey, but it hasn't been always easy. And one thing that has been so important, and I neglected in every single other relationship, and I think this is why I had issues before, I'm taking like accountability. Like, a lot of this was my own fault, but communication, okay? I've made an entire episode on communicating. You can find that, and it's really important. But learning each other's communication styles is important to do right off the bat, okay? Because everyone's going to communicate differently. Even learning their body language and their like facial expressions and their tonalities, it's important. And also, I think it's important to kind of, one, notice these things, but then also maybe shed light, because the person might not know they do these things, okay? So for instance, Kyler and I, like, I did not realize when I'm like upset, I just go quiet. I like him saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. But like, it wasn't like I intentionally would do that. It wasn't like, oh, I'm mad, I'm not going to talk. But that was just my defense mechanism. And that was like a habit I had created. But for Kyler, he doesn't like that, because growing up, when people went quiet on him, it meant they were mad. Typically I go quiet because I'm sad. Okay. So we have different like reasons for this. But anyway, like, having that discussion even about communication is important, and being like, okay, I've noticed these things. let's talk about it. Like, why do you get quiet? Or, I can view it in your body language. Like, even if you're saying you're not mad, I can read it. Like, let's talk about it. And just being honest and open and explaining why and how you know these certain things can be really helpful to navigate the conversation and the situation. But two, just like checking in. I think checking in randomly, like once a week, once a month. I mean, like, how are you feeling? What's going on? Like, how can I serve you better? How can I like lead this? If it's a guy, how can I lead this relationship better? What do you need from me? But then I also think it's important to give praise where praise is due. And I think it's great to be like, you know what? Like, I felt a lot of love from you this week and I really appreciate it. Like, you doing this or you checking in on this, like, people, that goes a long way because it can be easy to like nitpick. And I've been guilty of this too, like only talking about the negatives because if it's not a problem, like it's not top of mind kind of. But give them praise and give them appreciation for the things they're doing right in those conversations as well. Because if you're just nitpicking and pointing out all the negatives, it can feel really defeating and it can feel like they can never do anything right. So make sure there's a good balance, but you have to also bring up difficulties. And if you just bury things and avoid them, I promise you it's going to like burst and explode, and then it's just going to be a whole mess. So it's like solve the mini problems before they develop into like a big major issue and a hard conversation. Like that conversation can be 10 times harder than like the little mini conversation that you have to have, that you may not want to have. It's a critical one. And then I think another thing too, and this is even early on into a relationship, but to ask each other, like, what does so-and-so look like for you? So like Kyla and I had this conversation. It was like, what does like a man of God look like to you? What does a woman of God look like to you? What do you need in a wife? What do you need in a husband? How do you receive love? What does it look like with you giving love? So then each other understands. Like for Kyler, like it's kind of like talking about love languages and explaining it, but also too, it's a way to be like, do we fit? Like, can I provide these things for you? Can I show up in a way that you need? Because it's not fair. Like if you need something and they can't give that to you, like honestly to me, it's like, okay, that's not the person God created me for, because it's going to be a match. Like they're going to be able to fulfill a need, maybe not a want. There's not going to be everything. Compromise is a thing, but I think like your major needs will be met with the right person that God intends you to be with. So you have to, it's hard, but you have to be honest in these conversations and truly like not try to cater your answer to fit them and be like, oh no, we're meant to be together. Like be honest and share these, like have these conversations. And maybe it is something that maybe they're not doing now, but they feel like, oh, but I could do that. Like if you need that, like I can show up in that way. And trust me, it will benefit your relationship tenfold. And then another big piece of advice, and something that I've learned this year too, and this has to do with my faith because that's a huge part of my life. And as you guys know, it's such a big part of my life. So it's a big part of my relationship as well. But I think it's really important that Kyler and I, or like me, like my boyfriend and I, are always going to be like equally yoked. And you guys might not know what that means. And it's not like we're equally experienced and we've known the Lord an equal amount of time. It's like an equal pursuit. Like we both want to pursue the Lord as hard. You know, like we have equal intentions of spending time with the Lord and being in the presence of the Lord and implementing it to our life. Okay. Because if it's somebody who's like, I was newer to the church than Kyler, like he was a whole year ahead of me, but we were both still on fire equally and pursuing the Lord equally. So it worked. Okay. So it's like, just because someone doesn't know the Lord as long as you doesn't mean they're not going to work. Just make sure they're on fire and pursuing it as hard as you are. And then it will work. But that was something huge, because I'm like, if Kyler wasn't like on fire for God, it like wouldn't work for me. That's a huge thing in relationships. Another thing to remember is the importance of compromise. Okay, it's not your way or the highway, and this is hard because you have to kind of check yourself. And in a moment, you're like, there might be something and it's like, dang, like I want to do it this way. Like, for instance, a thing with Kyler and I that we've had to learn to compromise on is I'm a morning person. He's a night person. I love working out in the morning. He loves working out at night. But no, we also love, we both like working out together. That's like a hobby we enjoy doing together. And I miss working out with him. But I was like, you know what? If I want bad enough to work out with him, I'm gonna have to compromise and go at night a few times. And if vice versa, like he has to wake up early and go to the gym with me sometimes. So it's like, we both don't always get what we want. And we just had to come to a compromise on that and understanding and being like, okay, well, sometimes we both need to go at our own times, but if we really want to go together, like one time we'll go at night and then the next time we'll go in the morning, but it can't be always at night and always in the morning because that's not fair, essentially. But understanding compromise is really important because I did not do that in my first relationship. To be honest, like I was immature, but it was always my way or the highway. I'm not gonna lie, my boyfriend kind of too. He was just a sweet soul and he just kind of went with my way regardless, but I don't think it should be that way. I don't think it's healthy for one person to always be compromising because I think that builds resentment in the long run. So I think equally you need to compromise and equally you need to sacrifice. Sacrifice is such a huge part of relationships, especially marriage, but like there's certain things you're going to have to sacrifice. Make sure they're not like your morals and your values and these really important things to you, but like the little things, like what time you go to the gym. Okay, and then oh, this one, okay, I like this. And this was something that I didn't know how I felt at the beginning, but now that I've grown in my faith, it's very clear to me that like I want and need a man that leads. And I think every woman like likes that and wants that. Like it feels so good to be with a man who you can just blindly follow. Like for an example, you could be like walking down the street. One, it's like a man who thinks to be like on the like curbside and have you on the inside. It's a security thing. It's a safety thing. If a car goes over the like curb, it's going to hit him before it hits you. Like protects you. Okay. Opens a door for you, makes decisions, can like, you know, make a plan and can lead in other areas like character and the future. You know, I don't know. I have dated guys who didn't necessarily lead and I did, and it made me honestly like in my masculine. It put me in my masculine and I did not like that. And it actually caused problems in my future relationship because I showed up wanting to lead because I'd always made all the decisions because the other partner, like my boyfriend at the time, didn't really make any decisions and it was always up to me. So I was like my way or the highway and I kind of loved it because I'm like, yeah, I always get to make the decision. But like that's one, not healthy. And two, when I actually found a man who wants to lead a relationship, it caused problems because we were both butting heads, being like, I was so used to leading and being like the masculine in the relationship. Not saying, if you guys understand like the term feminine and masculinity, it's like the traits behind it. Like I was kind of being both in one of the relationships. So I showed up to this other relationship with Kyler and it was difficult at first and I had to kind of learn to soften and slow down and allow a man to lead and to fall in my feminine and let go of the masculine. And I have a whole episode on this too, because this was a whole lesson I was learning in life and it was so good. And I'm so glad I've experienced that and learned from that because it's helped. Oh, it's been so good. Like that's like one of the best things I've done. And then the last thing I want to leave you guys on is to learn to not compare your relationship to someone else's relationship or to a past relationship because it can be easy to do both. It can be easy to be in a relationship and be like, well, my ex never did this, or my ex would have done this, or so-and-so's boyfriend set up a whole little picnic for Valentine's Day and like I just got a bouquet of flowers. It's in our nature, we are going to compare. But you have to stop because jealousy is the root of all evil and comparison is, and that does no good. You have to understand, like, just because you just got a bouquet of flowers and someone got a whole picnic dinner doesn't mean that your relationship is any worse off, okay? Because sometimes, like, if a man could only provide flowers, I mean, you really have to, like, reflect on the heart posture, but it's like, if the man only has $20 to spend in his account because he's saving or he's investing in a business or he has a lot of bills and all he has is $20 and he's spending all $20 on that bouquet to give to you, he's giving 100%. That guy who set up the $500 picnic may have $10,000 extra dollars to spend, but he's only spending $500. Like think of it in that perspective of being like, you know what, they're giving their all to me. Their heart is in the right way and they truly care and want me to feel cared for and loved. Focus on that. And you have to learn to like brush away the like outside noise and the comparison too, because you also have to remind yourself everything you see on social media, no one's posting the bad moments with their boyfriend or girlfriend. They're not posting their fights. They're not posting the fact that they are struggling in this area or they just had a fight. A lot of times when you probably see someone post flowers, and a lot of times they're makeup flowers. Like we don't know the context behind them. So it's like she gets flowers every week. Well, maybe they're makeup flowers. Like maybe they're not, you know, but I'm not saying that's the case for everyone, but you just have to have that perspective of people only show the good, and a lot of times when they show more, it's because there's like more going on in the background that they don't want to show, if that makes any sense. I don't know, but it can be hard, and I just think that can be one of the needles that like deflates a relationship, is the comparison and the looking outward and just not focusing on you two and like the love that you guys have and share. So communicate, don't compare right off the bat, y'all. Get down to like the morals and values, make sure you're equally yoked. And yeah, that's my relationship episode. I just wanted to talk. I wanted to walk y'all through my journey of dating and the things that I've learned. And I hope that this can help. And I hope you guys have a lovely Valentine's Day, whether you're spending it with a significant other or you're spending it alone. Trust me, equally are important, and you have love to give and love to receive. So many people love you, whether you have a boyfriend or not. And I love you, most importantly. So I'm going to end the episode here. Again, I love you guys so much. Happy Valentine's Day, belated Valentine's Day, and we will chat next week. Bye, guys.